Some of you have already done this before. I want you to be careful because while I'm giving you a framework to sort of use as you answer questions to keep you from rambling, I don't want you to sound like a robot either. I don't want you to be like, the situation was, the task was, the action I took was, the result was. Like, it becomes too robotic. And I've heard I'm friends with a lot of instructional leaders because I've been doing this business a long time. And I hear from people at the district level, and I also hear people at the school level say, hey, when they do their interviews, first of all, they're trying to solve every problem in education. We need it to be an entry level position. And secondly, they either ramble on and on, or they're using this formulaic method where they sound too robotic. Okay. And this is really, really important. So what I want you to think about, whatever question they ask you, I want you to think about the situation. What is the situation? Just outline it. We had a lot of referrals happening at the schools. We had a lot of kids getting written up, and we weren't really sure what was going on. Okay. Task. My principal asked me to have a look at the referral data and break it down, disaggregate the data. This is data driven. And see if I could find any patterns, okay? And develop a little presentation for the principal so that we could look it over at the next leadership meeting, right? Action. I went in, I pulled all the data from my discipline referral database or whatever. I noticed some themes. I noticed some trends. I highlighted those, put them all in a presentation. And the result was at the next leadership meeting, we went over the data and were able to come up with a plan. Now, notice my response there. Did I solve the referral crisis? Did I solve the problem in education with student behavior? Did I make every teacher a wizard at classroom management? No, I did not. I had one small task that was for sure leadership. I was asked by the principal to generate a data report. That is leadership, and that is enough of a task. That's what these leaders at the district want to hear. These little nuanced things that you are able to compile data for your principal. Now, if you're a principal, here's the next step up, right? If you're trying to become a principal now, maybe it was that you, as the seasoned AP who's about to become a principal, you gave this to a new assistant principal. So you might say, we had a lot of referrals coming in. We weren't sure what was going on. I was really busy with some other things happening around the school. So I thought this would be a really good task for one of our new assistant principals who was just itching for some new leadership opportunities. So I met with this new assistant principal and we went through what we were trying to do. And so there's a situation. The task was I developed a plan for this new assistant principal to go in and pull that data and have her look at it, disaggregate it. I reviewed it before she presented it to the principal just to make sure everything was there. And I tasked her with this. And she ended up building a great presentation after a couple of iterations and feedback from me. And the result was we had a lot of really good data to go on and move on to next steps, which was how to address some of these spikes in behavior issues. And you might go in even further. If you're becoming a principal, you might say, we noticed that a lot of it was happening in a reading class. And we had a brand new reading teacher in there, and she didn't have a lot of classroom management experience. We saw that a bunch was happening in art classes as well, whatever the data showed, right? And you may talk about it a little bit, but that is enough right there. You do not need to solve every problem in education. Now, the result might work towards your favor. Something like compiling data for the principal, hopefully the result is good that you were able to compile data. That's the least of what you should be able to do at this entry-level position, right? But if it's something bigger, like let's say you're going for a principal job, and maybe your whole thing was you're implementing a new reading program on campus. Like, this is much bigger, right? This is someone who has got a lot more experience. And you get the curriculum, you do the training, you train the teachers and blah, blah, blah. And you look at the data and you see it's not working, right? So the result in this initial action was not great. You can communicate that. You can say, we looked at the data and we noticed it really wasn't making a difference. So I disaggregated it down and worked with my colleague to figure out what was going on. And we realized that we didn't train teachers in this one piece They had gotten the overall training, but they didn't get this like little nuanced training. And I thought that was holding them behind. So I did some follow-up data analysis by just talking to the teachers and seeing how comfortable they were with that. And we realized that they weren't comfortable at all and they needed initial training. So I was able to use that failure, or somewhat of a failure, and the data around it to build a follow-up, a better plan. That is continuous improvement. That is using data to make instructional decisions. So notice that it doesn't always have to be a perfect scenario at the end. In fact, strengths-based tasks or strengths-based situations where you got kicked down, where it didn't work, and you were able to go back and look, that's part of being resilient. And you know from your SLLA 6990 and your Praxis 5412 and whatever leadership exam you're taking, resiliency those are questions on the exam to see what happens when you get knocked down. What do? You use data to, move back up. And so that is really, really important.